Welcome to this final part of this year's Virtual Speech Day, wherever you might be in the world. It is, of course, very sad that we can't come together in the Abbey Church this year to join the monastic community for Mass, to celebrate academic achievement, to welcome this year's guest speaker in person. But to take an optimistic viewpoint, at least we're able to join together through this medium and to celebrate something of the year that is just about to come to an end. This year, my address follows our guest speaker's address. So if you haven't seen Alexander McLean's address, which was sent by email on Wednesday, I urge you to pause here and watch it first. Alexander, who's been a friend of Worth for some years now and frequently comes to spend time in the Abbey, is a founder of Justice Defenders. You don't get any sense when you meet Alexander on one of his visits to Worth that he is even remotely interested in any of the accolades that have come his way, and there are many of them, except insofar as they help him to promote the cause of justice for the poor, the dispossessed, the falsely or harshly accused. His vision for justice is as brave as it is ambitious, and doesn't just include prisons in East Africa. He told me this week that a visit to a prison in Texas showed him one of the most inhumane places he had ever been. As a school that aspires to community, service and humility as three of its core values, there is much to inspire us in Alexander's work and in the talk that he has given us for this year's speech day. In a normal year, the collection at Mass would be to support our guest speaker's charitable work. And so if you feel able to support Justice Defenders, I invite you please to do that through the school's GoFundMe page. I want to pay special tribute to all the pupils today, but especially to our Year 11 and 13 pupils, whose endeavour had impressed us very much before the COVID crisis came along, and which has continued to as we have transitioned to Worth Online. My colleagues and I felt desperately sad for you when the public examinations were cancelled. And although, of course, we know there's more to education than the exams you sit or the grades you earn, of course, we also know that all the dedication, resolve and hard work, focusing on doing your best and being proud of your efforts, made the sudden change deeply disappointing, hard to accept, and not at all fair. On behalf of all of us who have taught you, I want to pay tribute to the resilience you have shown and the way you have worked to finish the course. I wish I could address for you all the unknowns about the future, but it's true, isn't it, that our futures are already full of unknowns. And as Alexander shares with us in his video, we should be careful not to weigh down the fragile bridge of the present with too many regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. Were this a normal speech day, I would ask everyone to stand now and to give all the leavers a round of applause as a way of sending you off with our love and our hope for the future. Perhaps you might try and imagine that applause for a moment. Even virtually, the feeling is heartfelt. Over the last 2 months, the various school media accounts have shown the Worth community at its very best. We have seen so many examples of current and ex-pupils, members of the teaching and support staff, serving the community and offering kindness and compassion to others. It has been very moving to see examples of us living out this value of service, which we understand to be central to who we are as human beings. And it has set anew in my mind the call for this school, with all it has to offer those who learn and who work here, to be a school that serves the community. That must continue to be a real part of the experience of being at Worth. I'm going to leave you with a short extract from an interview that Will Desmond recently conducted with an old boy of the school, Austen Ivereigh, who has written 2 biographies of Pope Francis, The Great Reformer, 2014, and Wounded Shepherd, 2019. In this excerpt, Austen reads part of a transcript of an interview he recently held with the Pope, in which he reflects on how the COVID-19 crisis has called society to a conversion, to a different way of seeing, to a renewed sense of service, and to be a more and just society. What makes this excerpt special is that Austen has allowed us to use part of his private recording of the Pope saying these words to him directly in Spanish, which Austen translates for the video, and I hope you'll find this reflection inspiring. Before then, it only remains for me to wish you a happy summer holiday. We are looking forward very much to welcoming you back here to Worth in September, and of course, wishing all our leavers every happiness for their futures, and looking forward to welcoming them at their mass and ball as soon as that is able to happen.
So I'm going to read everybody from a section of my interview with Pope Francis just before Easter, published in the tablet. And I'm going to read Francis's words to me when I'm asking him about whether this time of crisis has the possibility of bringing about a kind of conversion, or a different way of seeing. And this is part of his reply in the middle part of the interview, which I think when I listened to him, because he sent it to me as an audio file, it's when his voice slowed and he became very, very reflective. And I could tell this was coming from deep inside him. Here's what he said. And speaking of contemplation, I'd like to dwell on one point. This is the moment to see the poor. Jesus says, we will have the poor with us always. And it's true, they are a reality we cannot deny. But the poor are hidden from us because poverty is bashful. In Rome recently, in the midst of the quarantine, a policeman said to a man, "You can't be on the street, go home." And the response was, "I have no home, I live in the street." To discover such a large number of people who are on the margins, and we don't see them because poverty is bashful. They are there, but we don't see them. They've become part of the landscape. They're just things. Saint Teresa of Calcutta saw them and had the courage to embark on a journey of conversion. To see the poor means to restore their humanity. They are not things. They're not garbage. They're people. We can't settle for a welfare policy such as we have for rescued animals. We often treat the poor like rescued animals. We can't settle for a partial welfare policy. I'm going to dare to offer some advice. This is the time to go to the underground. I'm thinking of Dostoevsky's short novel, Notes from the Underground. The employees of that prison hospital had become so inured that they treated their poor prisoners like things. And seeing the way they treated one who had just died, the one on the bed alongside tells them, "Enough! He too had a mother." We need to tell ourselves this often. That poor person had a mother who raised him lovingly. Later in life, we don't know what happened, but it helps to think of that love he once received through his mother's hope. We disempower the poor. We don't give them the right to dream of their mothers. They don't know what affection is. Many live on drugs. And to see them can help us to discover the piety, the pietas, which points towards God and towards our neighbor. Go down into the underground and pass from the hyper-virtual fleshless world to the suffering flesh of the poor. This is the conversion we have to undergo. And if we don't start there, there will be no conversion. I'm thinking at this time of the saints who live next door. They are heroes, doctors, volunteers, religious sisters, priests, shop workers, all performing their duty so that society can continue functioning. How many doctors and nurses have died? How many religious sisters have died, all serving? What comes to my mind is something said by the tailor, in my view, one of the characters with greatest integrity in the novel called The Betrothed. He says, quote, "The Lord does not leave his miracles half finished," unquote. If we become aware of this miracle of the next door saints, if we can follow their tracks, the miracle will end well for the good of all. God doesn't leave things halfway. We're the ones who do that. What we are living now is a place of metanoia, of conversion, and we have the chance to begin. So let's not let it slip from us, and let's move ahead.
Son un milagro en esta sociedad. ¿Cuántos médicos y enfermeros han muerto? ¿Cuántos sacerdotes han muerto? ¿Cuántas religiosas han muerto? Sirviendo